All right, gentlemen, we are live here at Star Wars News Net. Gonna be everything High Republic this week. I am Tyler, joined as always by Mr. Well, I guess not as always, but Nate is back as always when we're talking High Republic or book stuff, right, Nate? So Nate is on today, followed by Jay. Nate, you're going to take the lead completely tonight. I'm going to just kind of be the cameraman in the back here. So, Nate, how you doing? Take it away.
I'm doing good, guys. How are you guys doing? Jay?
I'm doing great, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure being on here, and we're taking a short break from the Star Wars movie recaps to talk a bit about the High Republic 9 in Phase 3.
Yep, and the reason why we're doing that this week is it's a good week because Paul, if you've noticed, Paul is kind of an every week guy, and if you're knowledgeable about your Star Wars Newsnet Live lore, you know that he has some very important, very strong opinions on Rise of Skywalker. So tune in next week if you want that. In the meantime, we thought the book guys would hop on in here and talk some books because High Republic is back in full force. But before we get into that, we here at Star Wars News that just want to issue a giant congratulations to SAG-AFTRA and everyone impacted by the actors strike and writer strike for that matter, that they have reached a tentative deal. The strike is over, but for all intents and purposes, unless something insane happens in the ratifying process, it won't. It won't. We just got to say it. There's still that 0.01% chance. It won't. Sorry to put that bad juju out there.
What are you doing right now? What are you trying to do? We have reached the stage of what are you trying to put into the universe?
I don't know what I'm saying right now. I'm talking out my butt because I'm just so excited to talk some High Republic book stuff and comic stuff. We got it all because if you are familiar with the High Republic Publishing Initiative, it's growing so much every single moment. New episodes of Young Jedi Adventures just dropped yesterday on Disney Plus. That featured the debut of Bel Zettifar, Loden Greatstorm, Estella Maru, the Starlight Beacon, and some other surprises. So if you're...
I haven't watched yet.
Yep, so if you're a fan of the show, if you have any interest in the books and whatnot, you might want to check it out.
As long as Nubs does not get husked by a Nameless in some sort of horrifying way. I'm assuming Disney wouldn't want to traumatize the 6-year-olds out there, but you never know what might happen. And so I know that I might end up being one of those traumatized people as well if that were to ever happen.
I would too, but as far as I know, no Nameless yet. We're still before Phase 1. We're still before Phase 1 in that show, as far as I could tell. But as far as the publishing side of things, we are beyond the point of Starlight Beacon. Starlight Beacon has fallen. And over the last year or so, we have been in the past 150 years before that point with Phase 2 stuff. And now we are back with Phase 3 kicking off over the last month or so, depending on how you want to phrase it. But officially starting with The Eye of Darkness releasing next Tuesday. Me and Tyler have had a chance to read it. I think it's safe to say we both enjoyed it. We're very excited to talk about that in a moment here. And if you're a comic guy, several releases have hit the comic shelves there, including Shadows of Starlight issues 1 and 2. And then Kevin Scott's The High Republic just kicked off yesterday as well. We will be talking about all of those. We're not sure if we're talking spoilers on that yet. We'll get there when we get there. But first, we want to talk Eye of Darkness. We will be talking no spoilers, so you shouldn't have anything to worry about. But I have loose lips, so I'm going to try my absolute dangest. Tyler, I'm not sure how your tongue is.
Well,
but
I'm usually pretty good, but I also want to preface this too for the chat as well. Put in your comments. I want to know what is the anticipation for the Acolyte coming out next summer, because a lot of what we're going to talk about will pay, I would assume, some dividends next summer when the Acolyte comes out. The ripple effect from this final publishing initiative that's beginning now, it's going to end, after the Acolyte is released, but there are still going to be some ripple effects that take place within a Disney Plus Star Wars show set at the very tail end of this era, which still blows my mind. We're going to be getting that in just 6, 7, 8 months. And so I would love to hear. I'm just curious what people's anticipation level is for that, because for me, it's the most anticipated Star Wars thing outside of a movie for me. I'm just so excited. But I Have Darkness. I will do my best not to say anything. I'm completely sober this evening. I was like, there will be no whiskey had with dinner or anything like that, because we cannot afford a slip up of something of grand proportions this evening. We can't do that, especially because our friend Jay is on and he hasn't seen this, or he hasn't watched this yet, or read. See, I can't even speak tonight. I still got Acolyte on the brain, but he hasn't even got a chance to read this yet. So I don't want to say anything for him, because I know he's a big High Republic fan as well. So before, I would love to hear what Jay has to say as someone who hasn't read it yet. What's the anticipation level? What is your the hype generator at right now?
I guess like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm maybe around like a 6 or a 7, because like I actually really yeah, I know you guys are like, what? No, but in all honesty, like so this is gonna actually be a hot take from me for to just get things started.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really enjoyed Phase 2, and I actually enjoyed it more so than Phase 1. I know that's actually a bit of a hot take, where a lot of people really like Phase 1 and they're like Phase 2 was a bit of a disappointment, but I actually do think I really enjoyed Phase 2, and
it's not a hot take. I will back you up. It's
actually,
not. I don't think it's a hot take.
Yeah,
I think
really?
I think that Cataclysm and Convergence were 2 of the 3 best novels that have come out of the High Republic. Now, I was so ready to get back with our characters that we started with, but just in terms of singular storytelling, I absolutely love it. I'm not going to come at you for that one.
Oh, okay. Nate, what about you? Like of the 2 phases, which ones did you enjoy the most? More?
Phase 1 for sure. Phase 1 for sure. I enjoyed much of Phase 2. I definitely did. I do think that as a Phase 2 enjoyer, you will very much appreciate quite a bit of what George Martin does with the Eye of Darkness.
Yeah. Okay. So like that's one thing like that I'm coming into this, right? Is just now that we've gone through Phase 2, now that we have a little bit more information about the Nile, and about Marchion Row, and about the Path of the Open Hand, and how all of that plays into the story. I'm curious. Like that's my biggest question going into this is how much of Phase 2 is actually gonna be included in Phase 3. So that's where like I'm coming from. I'm also really excited just to even like you guys. I'm excited for like these characters. Obviously, I'm really excited to see where they take Elzar Mann. I'm really excited to see where they take Avar Kriss.
Yeah.
Buryaga, and Belzetzafar. I think all of those guys.
The Mount Rushmore of Phase 1 right there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So all of those characters, I'm really excited to know what happens to them. Even I'm blanking out, but who's like, they had the concept art that came out a few days ago and that we reported.
We should. You want to open with that, Nate?
Yeah.
You have the screen share.
Let's go with
because I think it's important to look. There's these stark differences from where we began to where we are. Like,
if you want to pull it up, Tyler,
I can absolutely add that up. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's just get rolling here. So the Eye of Darkness, Marchion Row is full blown on the cover, and here we have some concept art of him. So Phase 1, he has the mask on, he's hiding. Heading into Phase 3, he is no longer hiding. He is just loving life. There's a description here from artist Ario Anandito that is quoted: "He feels like a king. He is now at the top, feeling all powerful and untouchable. I want him to look both victorious and cunning at the same time, elegant yet dangerous. And you can kind of see it in his face. He just has this sly, like, I am.
It's presumed victory. Like he feels like he has finally won. I am him.
I am him. I rule the galaxy. And very much so at the beginning of Eye of Darkness, he plays that up to very devastating effect. That's all I'll say on that. But one thing I also love in Eye of Darkness is, even in seeing that quote, the Eye of Darkness, all I'll say on Markion's arc in the book is that George Mann introduces a different side of the character as well. And one of my favorite elements of the book is that it's not so much a galactic war. It's more of a Cold War in the Eye of Darkness. Both the Nihil and the Republic are trying to figure out what now. We both want to win this fight, but both sides need to do it in the right ways. And for the Nihil, that's a very interesting, because you think that they're just these warlord marauders, but I don't know. It's just it's a very interesting way that Mann approached Markion and the Nihil in the book that I really think is going to be interesting for people to read next week.
Real quick, I do want to address MB Wilson's chat here. He said, I'm extremely excited for Phase 3 and the Acolyte. I'm curious to see how much of a time gap there will be between the end of Phase 3 and the Acolyte. So what we know about the Acolyte, what we know about the High Republic is they said that it ends around 50 years before the Phantom Menace, and that the Acolyte's going to take place close to that. And so I believe I saw Empire magazine put out, and it might be on official Star Wars, that it's going to be roughly around 100 years before Phantom Menace, and Phase 1 began about 150 years before the
Phase
Phantom
1
Menace.
was 200 years. Phase
200
2,
years.
Okay,
200 years.
Yeah, so right now
it's going to be a significant jump in time.
Yeah.
Like,
as far as we know, there could still be a time jump. I mean, Phase 3 is a long.
It's going to take place for a while.
Yeah, we're going to be in this for a long time. So in universe, it could be just as long. So we'll see. We'll see. But yes, that is very interesting because when the Acolyte airs, we're not going to know the end of the publishing. So when we get done with the Acolyte, the state of the Acolyte is going to tell us so much about where the publishing side ends. And that is very interesting for me.
And we're going to speculate, I think, a little bit here towards the end of the show on the Acolyte, because I do have some not predictions, but just some speculation that I would love to get into. But who's our next character here? We Markion Rowe. Who's our next one?
All right. We got so much concept art from this. This all came from StarWars.com, if you want to look at that. And then there's some other data bank stuff that we might get into. But here we have Avar Kriss, where she starts the Eye of Darkness. She is trapped in the occlusion zone. If you're not familiar with what that is, basically after the fall of Starlight Beacon, the Nihil and their Storm Seeds basically just someone in the Outer Rim just set up a big giant storm wall and chop the galaxy in two. Nobody can get through unless you're Nihil approved, which is basically just Nihil. And if you're not Nihil, good luck is all I'll say.
Well, it's fascinating because they have these little beacons basically forming this, electronic like wall, and any ship that's trying to pass through is completely destroyed. And it's just crazy watching the Republic have absolutely no answer for this, even though they've been working on this and they're still not able to do it. And then some of the technology, the things they're able to even do with the storm wall that you see throughout the novel is pretty wild. It's pretty incredible. And
it's a fascinating.
Avar here, I mean, she is the golden, the chosen one of the Jedi Order in a sense. You have Stellan, who's kind of like the public figure of between the Senate and between the Jedi, and then you have Avar, who's like, she is the hero. She is the golden child. She is the one that's at the front. Everyone calls her the hero of Hetzel. And then just the darkness that you see from her, because it's such a time of darkness and just hopelessness. and seeing her inner struggle in Eye of Darkness that she's battling with because she feels like she's not a Varkris anymore that she's supposed to be. Concept art, oh my gosh, it's so good. Jay, having not read the book, what's your initial take on Avar's look for Phase 3?
I really dug it. I really dug, like, I mean, we'll get into, you know, the other Jedi and the other characters. It's interesting because, you know, like, just the color contrast is so stark. I mean, the High Republic obviously started, and when it began, we were kind of like thinking, oh, you know, it's like these characters when they're more bright, colorful, you know, in a more regal state. So to see them like this, it's kind of really surprising.
You still get the logos. I mean, it goes from gold to black in the High Republic.
Right. I mean, you know, that's one thing I liked about the Phase 1 was just the regality of it all. But now it's just really grim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who we got next? Who do we got? We'll do a couple more.
Yep. And this is probably good enough to talk Eye of Darkness in a non-spoiler fashion. So I think this is going good here. Got some quotes. All right. The big dude.
Let's go.
Porter Engle. He is also in the Occlusion Zone. I don't think we should talk too much about his involvements, but let's just say he is a big reason why Phase 2 enjoyers should get excited for this book, for Eye of Darkness. I love him in this book, and he's great. That's all.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Porter Engle. I saw the concept art, and that really shocked me. You know, because I think that that's something that we don't, for readers and fans of the High Republic, we don't kind of think of this version of Porter Engle in our minds when we read about him in books and comics. And so to see him like this, and I love the design of, you know, like the sort of like poncho, I don't know, cape that he's got on. He's got like the very Japanese kind of inspired hat, evoking a little bit of the samurai. When I saw this, I think he was like the one that really stuck out in my mind of being like, okay, no, this is a different direction, you know.
Porter Engle, the Blade of Bardata himself, is one of my absolute favorite characters. Being able to, I reviewed the Blade series that they did back with the Phase 2 stuff, and it was so fun. And I cannot wait.
I still have to read the Blade
to be able to do that. And there's going to be more Blade comics coming in the future.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's going to be more.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's unofficial. Star Wars hasn't said, but Charles Soule has teased he is writing the Broken Blade. I don't know what form that'll take yet. I have no idea.
We're gonna get something.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. I have no idea. And I appreciate that they are keeping it secret, because I love that they're keeping so much of Phase 3 under wraps, but yet we know so much already just by images like this. All right.
What we got next here?
Anything to say about Burry, guys? I don't think there's a whole lot to read into this myself.
Angry Wookiee means bad things for bad guys. That's what you have to know. Angry Wookiee is never good because, they don't tear your arms off. Droids don't tear your arms off when they lose.
I will say,
that man got trapped under a freaking storm after a building, this beacon crashed on him, and he still lived. You think he's not, a little hungry for some get back?
I think though that what I will say about Baba Yaga's change in design is he's evoking more of the brown of the Phantom Menace,
Yep.
I think that's kind of an interesting, now we're actually starting to see a little bit of the transition into that time period, right?
Didn't Minji comment on that part of it? Yeah, the artist commented that he's dressed in the classic Jedi letters. He's a bit old. He's a bit older and a little thinner than last time we saw him, and he's fully equipped to be out in the field. And while we're down here,
well, something about Burry too is he's a Wookiee, so we don't know what he's saying all the time because of the truth. But they still write it in such a way that makes Burry feel like, in a lot of ways, that he's the heart of the High Republic for the Jedi in many ways, just the different stories. And he's kind of the heart of the story, and he kind of keeps the next character we're going to talk about grounded at times. And their relationship is absolutely beautiful to see unfold. Nate? you may please scroll down.
All right, I
Grace
think
us
this will be
all
our
with
last
May.
one because I think there's only a couple more, and we can save the last one for when we get to future book talk. But Bel Zettifar is one of my favorite characters in the High Republic. So to see him lose the man bun, oh my God, he means business. And as well as to see him just yesterday in Young Jedi Adventures, this man has been through it and more. He has lost his master. He has lost some friends. He thought he lost his best friend, and he had to go to some really interesting places to find Buriaga. And now he is a desperate boy in Eye of Darkness to score a win against the Nihil. And that's all I'll say on that because I love Bel's arc in the book. I wish we get into spoilers because I do have some thoughts on the resolution of Bel's arc, but that's all I'll say on that.
Bel is everything that, in a lot of ways, Elzar as well. I see, like, I cannot help but see Jedi like Bel, Jedi like Elzar, and just wish and dream of Anakin having been able to live in a time where Jedi like Elzar and Bel would have been there to support him and have the views that they had, because if Bel has lost so much, and there is times where he does want to react in anger and do those things, and he has those people that are bringing him back, like a Burry who brings him back from the edge, but also acknowledges with him that it's okay to feel that way. And so much of when we're with Anakin, it's like, you shouldn't even feel that way, like, at all. That's kind of what the Jedi are at. Like, Elzar is going through so much as well. And there's people in his life that are like, it's okay that you're feeling this. You need to work. We're going to work through this. And so Bel is just amazing. And who doesn't love little Ember back there? How can you not love her?
Yeah. Jay, any thoughts seeing Bel and his
this one? Yeah, like you guys. I mean, it was a kind of a bit of a gut punch when I first saw that concept art, because like you guys said, I mean, I think Bel Zettifar and his relationship with Loden Greatstorm in Phase 1 was a key part of the of Phase 1. And to see him, and for those who know what happens to that character, it is a little bit saddening. But I think that I really like the overall, like, it's a subtle redesign for his character and in the arts, but I think that the little touches of the gauntlets and the shoulder pads is such a good little detail to really emphasize.
He's dressed
again,
for war.
Yeah, this guy's ready to do battle, and
which is scary to think that we're here with this version of the Jedi Order.
Yeah,
which is so much. Oh my gosh. Like Shadows of Starlight's first issue.
Yep, we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, felt like a Clone Wars issue. It really did.
Yeah, and then even just there's a lot of these characters, and that we have the one who we didn't touch on yet, and we're saving, but even Vernestra Rowe, who we discussed in that article, is more older and also like more battle hardened. All these characters are more battle hardened, so it's a different outlook and it's a different direction for these characters. That's really surprising, but I'm welcoming it.
Absolutely.
All right. Any parting thoughts on the Eye of Darkness before we move on, gentlemen? Because we got so much more to talk about.
Please get that copy as soon as you can. Yep. It is not, I wouldn't say it's like my favorite High Republic novel, but it is one of the most can't put down High Republic novels, just because the task that it tries to take on is truly it's truly difficult, but it does take big swings, and I really love a good big swing. I said something I wrote down, Nate, from your review. If you guys want to see a non-spoilerly review of the book, go check out Nate's review on Star Wars Newsnet. A note that I wrote down, Nate, that I really appreciated that you said was the core struggle of this book being the impending dread and the fight for hope, like, just kind of intersect directly. And Eye of Darkness isn't necessarily a book about Markey and Rowe, but more about the darkness that the Eye himself has spread. And it's really good.
Markey on Rowe this is minor spoilers, I guess, but he's honestly, his presence is more felt, just the aura of him and what he represents, and the actual physical presence of Markion isn't as there. He definitely is present in the book, and he does some horribly dark things. Don't get it twisted. He's not in the book all the time, but when he is, it matters. It's one of those types of deals. But he is, and I say it in my review, he is the ultimate boogeyman that you are scared of when you go to bed at night. And I love those types of villains, man. I love Markion Ro as a villain. And the one thing that I can't wait going in this phase is we know the Jedi are going to win, but it's the how. Well, yeah. Well, yes. We know they're going to beat the Nihil
to win.
But as I said in my review, at what cost? And we know the cost is that it's going to result in the Acolyte and the Sith coming back.
Right.
Possibly. We don't know exactly how it's all going to work, but but the Nihil are opening the door to some dark things in the galaxy with the Nameless and beyond.
Oh, it reminds me of every time I think of the Nameless now, I just keep thinking of the Master and Apprentice prophecy line of like, only through the death of many Jedi will the sins against the Nameless be cleansed. And we even have a book called The Tears of the Nameless that comes out at some point. Jay, have you read the Blade comics?
No, actually.
Okay.
That's why I was like really excited, like, to see Porter Angle. I know about the Blade, and I know it's like a good book. I just haven't it's a good comic series. I really want to get to it now. Again, especially after seeing Porter Angle.
Do I have permission to put the image of a certain villain on to at least give Jay an idea of what this villain looks like?
I'm pulling up I'm pulling up the Phase 3 version of the character right now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You have my permission.
Okay, so this is the Fade 100%. This is Porter Ingle's basically longtime nemesis that is now essentially one of Markion Ro's ministers. She's like in charge of all things Jedi hunting. This is General Weiss, and like she has like this Beskar like armor and this double-bladed staff, and she is as cold-blooded an assassin out there.
She knows how to kill some Jedi because that staff is full Beskar. So if you see the Mandalorian, she does not play around.
And
is she only in the Blade comic?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was when I read the Blade, I was like, who is this person? They teased that they're going to be big in Phase 3.
Charles Soule teased, and now if you want to pull up, I have a shared screen version of the older version of General Weiss. And she is an Eye of Darkness. Minor spoiler there. It's out and about in the world. It's not really spoiled anymore because it is public information. She is one of the ministers of the Nihil. The Nihil have kind of reorganized. The Tempest Runners, the days of those guys, gone. We will get into one of the only Tempest Runners remaining in a moment here when we get to the comics. But now the ministers are running the Nihil, and Weiss is one of them. And I also want to talk about another one of the ministers because I cannot wait to see more of a certain character that will probably be in the comics. But segueing into that, let's talk some comics that have been released. We're going to be here a long time, boys. Oh my God.
You want to start with Shadows of Starlight? Marvel just released their first one. Which one? There's 2 issues of Shadows of Starlight, and we have 2 High Republic. We have 1 High Republic Marvel comic.
Let's start. Shadows. Let's go Shadows. Let's go Shadows. This series is a 4-issue miniseries that is currently getting published. Issue 1 is not pictured here. That released back in October. That kind of set us off in the right path. Each issue, written by Charles Soule, I get the feeling each issue is going to take a certain point, a certain character in the High Republic, and just take us through the year gap between Phase 1 and 3. Issue number 1 was more on the Republic side and on Yoda. And Phase 2 readers, if you want to know more about why, you should continue into phase 3. There is some great phase 2 stuff in that issue. Issue number 2, which just released yesterday, is all about Elzar Mann and Avar Kriss. An amazing issue. Issue number 3 you saw there is all about Bel Zettifar. I imagine we'll get the comic interpretation of how Bel saved Buryaga, which was first shown to us in Tales of Light and Life. And amazing.
Looks like he's getting knighted in that scene.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
In that page.
And he'll probably cut off his man bun in that comic as well, which, oh my God, that's going to be very powerful if the previous 2 issues are any indication. Because Charles Soule knows how to tug at every follicle of your being. And then issue number 4 will come out in January, so we'll have a little bit more all about the big guy himself, Marchion Ro, and what he's been up to. It's a little weird that we're getting certain issues as we're already into phase 3, when the whole point of the series is to lead up to phase 3. But, oh well, it's not the biggest deal in the world. That's comics for you. I mean, it's tough to release comics so close together. Comics almost have to release monthly. That's just the reality of the industry. Occasionally you get lucky, but is what it is. So I know Tyler's reading the series. Jay, have you read any Shadows of Starlight yet?
No, I haven't.
You have to.
Okay.
You should.
Yeah.
The first issue was, when I tell you, I usually read these comics. I wake up on the Wednesday morning if I'm reviewing it, and I'll just read through it real quick and you scroll through. First issue of Shadows of Starlight, I read 3 times. Because there was so much. Yeah. It felt like I was reading a Clone Wars like comic, or a prelude to what the Clone Wars is going to force the Jedi into 150, whatever, 200 years before it happens. They kind of institute what is called the Guardian Protocols, which forces younglings to be mandatorily trained in combat training. It forces these intricate sabers that are, made in this High Republic era, which we all love the lightsaber design in the High Republic era. It's something I think everyone has said, wow, how come they don't make these in where we're at now? And they actually even answer that question in a sense in there. They have a lightsaber designer, and he says, oh, this is the last one I'm going to make. It takes so long. Like, well, why not? Well, because now we have to issue standard training, like combat training sabers, which are much less, more works of art and more of just about, the need, and it's quicker to use and quicker to make. It's accessible. And it's like, wow, that's pretty much all the Jedi use in the prequel time. Like, we're just, combat is normal. Combat training is normal. And there's just different scenes where some of the Jedi are like, well, I'm supposed to be a scholar. I'm supposed to be a philosopher. And now I'm being told I have to train for war and go off to battle. And you see the Jedi, it's almost out of fear. And it is just fascinating. The whole thing just felt like a prelude to what I've read so many times in books and comics in Clone Wars era. And if you love Clone Wars, if you love that, you'll actually, I think, relate a lot to Shadows of Starlight.
Yeah, because Yoda, especially issue number 1, he is a massive part. Those who have been wanting Yoda in the High Republic, you've got to read that first issue, because he was around in phase 2, and he knew he knows what happened in phase 2 with the path and the burying of the Secret of the Nameless, which was fascinating to think about what that could mean going forward too. And he brings back, I don't want to spoil it for you, Jay, so I'm not, but very intriguing element into this era of storytelling. So I am so curious as to where it goes. It's spoilers pick back up in Eye of Darkness. So if you want to learn more about that, go read that book as well.
And then the last thing on that second issue, it follows Elzar and Avar, and they are just the lifeblood of phase 3 going forward, I think, just in many ways. And you kind of get the backstory of how Elzar ends up on the Republic side of the galaxy and how Avar ends up in the occlusion zone, that the Nile have, and the emotional turmoil that puts both of them in to be separated from one another is as impactful as any relationship dynamic storytelling in Star Wars. It really is. I say that not in like hyperbole at all. It is not embellishing that. It is truly, truly great. So I'm so excited for that, and I think that segue into the other comics, Nate. You think?
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. The other Marvel comic set is the main line, the flagship. Kevin Scott is back with his set. If you notice, someone who is very peculiarly placed next to now Jedi Master Keeve Trennis is former Nihil Tempest runner Lorna D. Very interesting that in issue 1, side by side, that issue is basically a callback to Phase 1, issue 1. I can't remember the Jedi that were lined up, but we got that in issue 1, and then a few months later down the line, issue number 3, Lorna and Keeve are back to fighting again. So it's going to be a fallout there, but Lorna D
is like back. To remember the Jedi that were lined up. It's Skier. We have Skier and Avar.
And then Avar and then Starlight Beacon. Everything was
observing this one right here.
Super nice and happy. And we're just getting into this galaxy. And now it's all pain and suffering and everything. Jay, I will toss this to you. Where's your excitement level at for this series, if there is any? Because I know you kind of are hit and miss with some of the High Republic comics, but where are you at with this one?
Yeah, no, I'm not so into the comics. I've never really... There wasn't like an artist working on the series that I was attached to, that I was like, oh, this, like there wasn't like an artist that I particularly like really enjoyed their art as much. So I'm not too excited. I'm probably more excited for Shadows of Starlight, because that one was like really, that one sounds like it's like super key to the overall,
definitely
getting into, Phase 3 of the High Republic. I'm kind of interested though, like having read through, Phase 1 with, I know a little bit about Keeve Trennis. The one character obviously that's definitely going to be very interesting though is Lorna D. Especially former Tempest runner, former high member of the Nile, someone who was betrayed and just was just such a scumbag in Phase 1. To see her working with the Jedi now, that's
she really
possibly. We're not sure yet.
That's true. That's true.
Here's the thing that's frustrating for me is that they are the big reveal. Having read the first comic is
spoilers for the first issue here.
But I'm just saying the big reveal in the comic is Lorna D. But like she's on the cover, so how big of a reveal really is it? And
true.
It was a little frustrating. There are some things that happen with the twins in that first issue as well. You'll want to read, but then we're 3 issues in down the line, and you see her and Keeve are sparring with one another. Now that could be a misdirect to show that they're actually going to end up working together, but we're going to make you think that they're fighting to the death. But if we know anything about Lorna D, she wants to cut the head off of every Jedi she comes across.
She backstabs everyone.
there's the only thing that I could possibly think of that could bring them together is a mutual hatred, or for like a mutual disdain for Markian Row, like a mutual like we have to get Markian Row.
And that's brought up at the very end there of issue number 1 that just came out, is that Lorna D reveals herself and she's basically just talking down to Keeve. It's like, you Jedi, you just did this to yourself, man. What are you guys doing? Like, Markion's better than you, and now I guess I have to step in and help you guys out. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens there.
I can't wait to see how Keeve battles her inner demons, because she is, throughout the first issue, you'll see how much she still is struggling with the loss of Skier and the other Jedi of her friends that she lost on Starlight Beacon. And I can't wait to get more into that. And she's a master now. She is a full-fledged master of the order. And we started with Phase 1 with her still as a Jedi Padawan learner. And so she's
the first issue was her
she
Jedi
gets knighted.
Yeah,
and she gets knighted. So like we're kind of going full circle with her. I cannot wait to see where it goes. Where do you want to jump to next? Just
I want to jump to
adventures,
issue number.
or?
Nope. I want to jump to issue number 2 there. If you want to pull that back up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I want to jump into that middle issue there. High Republic number 2. If you're curious as to who that dude is and why there's a nameless behind him who's not killing him on the spot, because they don't discriminate, Force user or not, they are known as the Children of the Storm. And they are headed by, if you want to bring up the new share screen I have up of their leader.
I love their leader so much.
Baron Bulin. Real quickly, in my review, I said he's a new character. I don't know if you've seen this, Tyler, or picked up on this at all. He is not a new character. Do you remember?
Who is he? I do not remember. I thought he was new.
He is not. So do you remember? And I can't remember. I forgot to find the tweet from Phase 2. He's a Phase 2 character. Path of Vengeance. Towards the end of the book, it's Yana Ro who is underneath in the tunnels of the Path compound, and she comes upon this little the Path of the Open Hand have their littles.
So one of the little children of the.
It was the little who was putting thermal detonators to blow up the entire.
Gosh.
And
they call him Bulin.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
That is Baron Bulin.
Just blows my mind. And now he's in charge of the Children of the Storm, the new littles, so to speak, of the
Path
Storm.
of Vengeance. Towards the end, Yana Ro comes across a little.
He knew Marta.
And the mother instructed Bulin to basically blow up the whole compound. And now, 150 years later, Bulin has found his way. Actually, Bulin probably stuck around with the Path of the Closed Fist, and that eventually became the Nihil. God knows the story of Bulin, because Baron Bulin is a very mysterious dude, and this image of him, this concept art, is chilling.
He's also in Eye of Darkness, right?
Yep. We meet him there. Mm-hmm. He is one of the Nihil's ministers. He's the Minister of Advancement. I won't get into what exactly that means, but it's kind of freaky. That's all I'll say on that front. Mm-hmm. It's kind of freaky. He is a mad scientist, a Thorian, and I can't wait to see what they do with him. I assume he will be. I assume he'll be primarily in the comic side of things, mm-hmm. but obviously don't know for sure until we get further down the line. I know the Children of the Storm right now are the main antagonists in the comic, so it just makes sense. But we'll see.
Real quick, in Billy Wilson, we also know that Trinus is one of the Fallen, so that will be an interesting story. That's true. I mean, was it like Dooku Jedi Lost where that got like the name Trinus was like kind of introduced, which was also a Captain Scott, so it makes perfect sense.
It does. Yep.
It really. I hope it's one of the Fallen in the sense of maybe she's not fallen to the sense of like she turns, to a bad path when she leaves the Jedi Order, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully Keeve can everything can turn out okay for Keeve.
All right, let's move it along here. So Marvel has their stuff, but we also have Dark Horse, who's going to put out their High Republic Adventures flagship. First off, before we dive into this, how about these god dang covers? Oh my God, they're so beautiful. I know the interior work is divisive from Harvey Talabau, however you say his name, but this cover art by the man, to me at least, is absolutely stunning and tells so much story in of itself. So what we have on each cover is basically Zine and Court basically by themselves taking on a new foe. I believe his name is Tartek Vil. I'll look it up in a second here just to confirm. We're not entirely certain who this dude is. He is a leader of a bandit group that apparently has knowledge of people lost in the Occlusion Zone, because apparently the crux of this series is going to be our two heroes trying to find they're friends. A very noble, classic journey that I can't wait to see play out. At the end of phase 1, of course, Lula Talasola kind of disappeared. We don't know her fate. So is she alive? Probably. Let's be honest here.
She's alive.
Let's be honest.
I need all of the Lula zine like content ever since. So I wasn't like huge into those comics when they were coming out. I really liked Lula zine, but then it was when I read Midnight Horizon that I just adore the two characters in Midnight Horizon.
I'm opposite. I fell in love with him in the comic, and I was not a fan of Midnight Horizon, honestly. I'm on that side of thing. But that wasn't me. But their relationship in the comic, I loved I loved that first run of High Republic Adventures.
It was
so
really
effing much. Jay, where's your anticipation for this series? Because I see your name attached to the review list for our comic stuff.
I'll be honest. High Republic Adventures and just like Dark Horse comics in general is a bit of a blind spot actually for me in terms of the High Republic. So I actually haven't read.
You have 1 month to catch up. You got 1 month.
Yeah. Right. So that's like actually, that's actually a bit why I did want to go ahead and check those out and also review it, because I think that these characters, I haven't gotten into those books, but like the artwork definitely does strike me. And I actually have been catching up. Man. Yeah, the covers are great, and I actually have been catching up with the High Republic Adventures over the the past few just getting acclimated to them. I haven't read them yet, but like just like reading reviews and reading what you guys have put out there. Like I think that for those who like me personally, I've been mainly sticking with a lot of the books and the main stuff there.
Right.
But I think that like what I think the High Republic Adventures does is it just provides a welcome breath of fresh air and a bit of lightness to overall like the the heaviness of it all. And like you guys said, like with the whole storyline, it's a little bit more simplified. It's two friends looking for their other best friend in the occlusion zone. And to me, I think that like,
how are they going to get into the occlusion zone?
Right,
because they can't. So
yeah. And then I think that
fascinating.
Right.
And the IDW covers are just, I like the Marvel comics storylines personally better through the comics. But from an artwork perspective and just visual appeal, the Dark Horse High Republic comics for me are far outstrip the Marvel comics just from a visual standpoint. They like the covers just get me every time. Yeah. I will scroll through. I kind of look for all the details. In Marvel, it's like more, all right, let's keep getting the story going because I enjoy the story a little bit more.
Also, I think Daniel Jose Older, I mean, I think he's a great writer. I think that like
he's so good.
I think
he's so underrated. It's not even
every interview of him I hear too. I just like this guy just seems like the best guy to just talk to. Like he just seems like a fun guy to hang around. I love authors that can just deliver that story, and then you're sitting to him, you're just like, all right, just talk to me. Like just keep talking.
Yeah, no, I think that like again, it High Republic Adventures is unfortunately a little bit of like a blind spot for me comic wise. Haven't been following too much about the Dark Horse stuff, but hearing you guys talk about it and hearing like just seeing some of that artwork, I'm intrigued. I'm actually excited to get into that and even do the review coming up.
Yeah, the phase 2 side of things for High Republic Adventures. The flagship High Republic Adventure series for phase 2, I didn't quite enjoy. But I loved the additional stuff from Dark Horse, like Nameless Terror, Quest of the Jedi. I loved those series so much. So I'm excited to see what Dark Horse can do with this next set.
The phase 2, the Jedi stuff, it just went on too long. It went on a little too long. They spent so much time there.
I wish the Marvel series ventured out. Like that series was good, but it suffered by just being stuck at the Battle of Jedha. We saw that battle
800 times.
God, it got tiring, and it's a very important battle, and I understand why we kept revisiting it, but it just got boring.
It couldn't move on, and then they couldn't time it to where like we could have gotten some of the action on Dalna.
Right.
Could have happened at the end because they were there.
Sure, they got Dalma. Like Dalma was far more compelling.
And how I would have loved to have been able to see some visuals, you know, of the Night of Sorrow that would happen. But it's
we got some and ironically, as we're talking about older, we got some in his manga at the Edge of Balance manga, which is going to be very important. So if you haven't read that manga, read that manga for Phase 3. Oh my god. But yeah, let's move on. So it's not just comics. Of course, the High Republic is primarily the major stories are for the most part stuck to the books and the adult novels in particular. But there are some other stories in junior novels and young adult novels. And the next novel after Eye of Darkness, we're looking ahead to January 30th now, is ironically Daniel Jose Older and Alyssa Wong's Escape from Valo. I'm going to pull up the synopsis real quick, and I want you guys to give us your anticipation for this book. Basically, Ram Jamaram and some people he brings along with him are trying to, escape from Ram's home on Valo.
Yes. Ram Jamaram, love Ram. He is, I don't know, I don't relate to Ram from the standpoint of he's kind of this tinkerer, like working with his hands a lot, kind of doing his thing. Like I don't relate to him much, but I love his spirit, and he's constantly just, how do I help my friends? Like, how do I want my friends to feel better? And in Tales in Light and Life, I think was such a beautiful story with him where he's feeling so homesick. He is really missing the camaraderie he had at his home and the familiarity of his home because he's been on Starlight Beacon since the Republic Fair went so poorly. And he's like feeling all of this, but instead of focusing on himself, he sees some of his friends that are going through it. And he's like, I'm going to try to do everything I can to make my friends feel better. And it was just such a beautiful little short story. And so I really hope Ram ends up surviving and thriving through Phase 3, because if he would just be one of those characters that it would just sting quite a little bit if he it would be an unnecessary casualty. So I'm curious because it looks like he's going to be in a bit of a leadership role here as there's some younger Padawans it looks like around him. And so I would like to see him in a leadership role because we've seen him kind of following some older Jedi and some older people around him throughout. So maybe now is his time to kind of rise up a little bit.
Jay, are you picking up this book at all?
You know what? I probably won't actually, but you know, just from like I'm curious to see how after Phase 3. After the Eye of Darkness, I'm curious to see like, how they're gonna balance, the a little bit of the really dark material, and then it is interesting having this be the next entry, right? So I think that Daniel Jose Older, is a great writer. This might probably be on the back burner, but I'll definitely will check it out. Certainly, if there's time.
The good thing about it is you can literally finish
it
in 20 minutes. So, it's going to be short.
Yeah, for me, the dark horse in this is Alyssa Wong. If you are not reading her Dr. Aphra comic, just what are you doing? Just what are you doing? She is a wonderful writer. She knows what she's doing. I love what you brought up there, Jay, and what's the tonal balance going to be after the Eye of Darkness, which is a very heavy book, but one of the key themes in the Eye of Darkness is the quest for hope, and that comes from within the Occlusion Zone. And based on the synopsis, I'm pretty sure this book takes place from within the Occlusion Zone, because I'm pretty sure
it does. They're trying to find a way to get out. And
so here's a synopsis for Escape from Valo. If you want to pull up, I'm going to share this screen. If you want to pull this up, Tyler, I have it pulled up here.
And then just to add on, Jason, while you're getting that, is it feels like as a middle grade, junior novel, it's gonna have this uplifting, probably hopeful spirit to it. Just generally speaking.
Yep. So coming out January 30th, 2024. Journey to the embattled occlusion zone in this action-packed adventure set hundreds of years before the Skywalker saga. Yeah, that's the tagline we're going to see a lot. It's a dark and dangerous time for the galaxy in which communication has been rendered nearly impossible in Nihil-controlled space, which is basically in the occlusion zone. It's every man for themselves if you're not Nihil. So the Jedi are basically on their own, which is very interesting. And in Nihil-controlled space, as the nefarious pirates continue to threaten the Republic's very existence, join Jedi Padawans, including Ram Jamaram, as they plot their escape from enemy territory. So it's a very basic synopsis, but like Tyler said, on the cover, we see Ram leading a group of younglings. And for Ram, that's not something we've really seen from the guy. I'm not a Ram guy. I like the character, but I don't. I don't know. I don't know many people who really love the guy, but I love the idea of Ram coming into his own and just ruling the roost and just wrecking shop. Because I love the visual of Ram just running through ranks of Nihil. I don't know what that would look like. But
the guy who says he hates fighting, he hates lightsaber training,
he's gonna have to. He's gonna have to.
And Nate's like, I want to see that guy. I'm ready for him to just
I want
start
the exact opposite because he's
severing
gonna have
people
to.
in two.
At this point in the fight against the Nihil in the occlusion zone, we see it in Avar's arc in Eye of Darkness. She has to go to some insane places. If Chris has to go beyond her limits, what does Ram have to do?
Probably not as much because
to even have
living within the contents of the middle grade novel.
Fair, but but we've seen these High Republic middle grade books do some really interesting things. Justina Ireland's Test of Courage. Very early on, they killed a dude. And then Vernestra's Padawan Emery almost went to the dark side. So
he force chokes her. They've
been to some places. So they're not. So these books are not afraid. And then in phase two, in phase 2, Quest Within the City, basically a horror book. They're not afraid to go to some dark places in this book. And the other one, Quest for Planet X, it's basically just a book full of deep philosophical conversations, and that's a book for kids. So they're not afraid to go to some adult, more mature places in these books. So
Emery trying to four-stroke Vern for a minute, and then Vern just says, boy, and just sends him force flying across about 100
All right. That's a good segue. Vern. That's a good segue into Defy the Storm by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland, the young adult novel. Coming out. While I'm pulling this up, if you just want to share my screen again here,
absolutely.
We'll just jump right into the synopsis for this. That comes out March 12th. So phase 3 books are more spread out. We'll go over the release schedule for the rest of the books that we know of at the current moment and after we get done with this. But March 12th, Defy the Storm, written by Justina Ireland, Tessa Gratton, who also co-wrote what was it? Path of Deceit together.
Path of Deceit.
Yep. So they are basically more or less a dream team, and Justina Ireland gets back to Vernestra, who she just gets, and then some. And this book is also taking place within the occlusion zone, according to the synopsis. So 1 year after the fall of Starlight Beacon, the galaxy is in chaos. An anarchistic group known as the Nihil is taking over a section of space now known as the Occlusion Zone. Yada, yada. We all know that. Jedi Knight Vernestra Rowe and scientist Avon Staros, who's back, team up in an attempt to find a way through the Nihil storm wall to save those on the other side. But here is what I really love and can't wait for this book for. But what are the Nihil's real plans? And what are the nameless creatures that can destroy the Jedi Order? The battle has just begun. Very dramatic there at the end. And if Vernestra comes face to face with the Nameless, I might. pardon my language, shit myself.
We know she's going to be okay, though.
Oh, I know. I know because she's an acolyte, but for a moment, I'm going to forget that she's an acolyte because it's just one of those things. Because the Nameless, they are my favorite character in the High Republic. I love the Nameless. And I can't wait to see what happens with them. All right, so looking at the cover here, we'll just lead into talking about this. I can't really make out a ton of what's happening. Basically it's Vern and some others, Avon you see on there, basically hiding among the Nihil, it looks like to me. But if you look at Vernestra, she kind of has a much different look. And it's very different from what we expected. I'm going to pull back up the concept art of her, and we can take a look at that. Kind of spearhead this conversation a little bit about this book and Vernestra. If you want to pull back up.
Yep, I got it.
Vernestra has not only dyed her hair, she has basically gone, I don't know, would you call that full emo? I don't know. But it's kind of in that vein, but she has kind of walked a different path. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but in Tales of Light and Life, she became a Wayseeker. Is that correct?
So in Tales of Light, it's a good segue to talking about Vern, because she's my number one character in the High Republic. Just right now is just my favorite. So this book I am very definitely looking forward to. She became kind of a self-appointed Wayseeker in the chaos after Starlight Beacon. The Tales of Light and Light basically picks up with her. She doesn't really ask the council for permission to be a Wayseeker. She doesn't do any of that. She just kind of says, I'm just going to do it. They're not going to miss me right now. And even beyond being a Wayseeker, she's wondering, what does it mean to be a Jedi? Like, what does it mean to trust the Force itself? And so I'm really curious to see how she goes from that to being back with Avon and helping her and, in a sense, looking after her, I would assume, and being thrust back into this, the conflict that we're in, because where we see her in Tales of Light and Life is in a very different place than what I would expect to see of her here, because she's in Tales of Light and Life, she's trying to rediscover what that is. And she does find what it means to trust the Force. And ultimately, I just can't wait to see how her arc ends up, because we know she's in the Acolyte. And I am so fascinated to see what's going to happen to her in this final phase that helps transform the wizened master that we're going to see in the show that comes out in, next summer. And there's a good chance we won't see that full arc before we see her in the Acolyte, which is going to be really weird to tell you the truth. But if I haven't put throw my hat in the ring to review this book for this, I'm doing it officially now, just as the Vern hype will just continue to rise for me. And I just also cannot wait to get a deep dive into what was going on with Avon, given that her mom is one of the ministers of the Nile.
That's interesting. That's interesting because they're in the occlusion zone, and I won't talk Gira's arc in Eye of Darkness, but oh man, that's really interesting. Oh yeah, that could be interesting too.
And it's just the dynamics that are going to go on there, because we don't get, Avon gets mentioned a couple of times just in Gira thinking through her thoughts and thinking about things, but there's no clear. There's nothing clear on what this, their relationship is
Avon,
and how they feel. So, just the tension between the things that could happen there. I am really fascinated to see what happens.
Yeah, this is a big book, and it just got bigger now that Tyler's mentioned Avon and Gira and all that stuff, and I put two and two together there. Jay, where are you at with this book? Where's your hype levels with this book?
I'm actually really excited for this one, because like you guys were saying, Vernestra is the only character that we know of as of now that's in the books, and that's also going to make an appearance in the Acolyte. The thing that really surprised
Phase 3.
Yeah, I mean the thing that also surprises me too is when I first saw Vernestra in the Star Wars Celebration, the kind of unofficial photos that we saw of her, she looks a lot different than she does in phase 1. And so that's why when I saw her in the photos, I was like, that's Vernestra. Now that I see her in phase 3 and on
we're
that
getting
cover
closer.
and on that concept art, yeah, we are getting closer to how she looks in the Acolyte, which is actually very exciting.
Yep, and we pull up the things that were leaked around, but we don't want to get in trouble for any of that stuff, and they're unofficial as well, so we're not going to show any of that. They're out there online.
Does that lead us into wanting to talk about the Acolyte, or we want to wrap up any just dates or anything coming up with the High Republic? We've done a pretty deep dive into everything going on, so I mean we can speculate a little Acolyte here if we want to, or just
real quickly. I want to run down the other books that are coming in phase 3. So what we just covered is basically everything in the first wave of phase 3. Phase 3 is going basically until 2025. So buckle in, guys. We're going to be here a while. In the live chat, I see it's not very active. If anybody is watching and if anyone has any questions, feel free to, and speculation, feel free to fire them in now, because we've kind of got done everything that we want to talk about for sure. We've been here for a long time, but I don't think we're done quite yet, because there's so much to talk about with the High Republic. And I don't care what you think about the era. It's just getting better and better, man. Like, I just love it so much.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite in Star Wars.
So let's go over what's going on from the book side of things. What we know of so far, what's announced so far. I'm sure there's an audio drama coming somewhere down the line. I'm sure there's more comics coming somewhere down the line. We're not sure but this is what we know now. Wave 2 is coming next summer. So Escape from Defy the Storm is in March. Then sometime in the summer, probably, I'd imagine August. Probably August. It's probably a good guess, but I can't confirm that or not. The adult novel is Temptations of the Force by Tessa Gratton, which after the Eye of Darkness, I won't spoil that, of course, but that title has so many different meanings that I cannot wait to see what Tessa does with that book. The middle grade novel of that phase is actually, I love the dichotomy of the on the other two books, because they both have the Nameless in them. I'll start with the young adult novel. Is Tears of the Nameless by George Mann. And actually, that'll come in the fall of 2024, which actually makes sense. Actually, yes, I would, but based on how they release based on release schedules, I would put money on Temptations of the Force coming in August 2024 if Tears of the Nameless is coming in the fall. But obviously, don't quote me on that. Anywho, so Tears of the Nameless coming in fall, and then the kid novel, going back to what we were talking about, the middle grade novel by Zoraida Cordova is called Beware the Nameless. Kids, I don't know what Jedi kids are going to be confronting the Nameless, but oh my God. I cannot wait to see who is going to probably die in a kid's book. Any initial... Honestly, I would not be surprised. I have theories that we'll get into after this about Young Jedi Adventures that I want to get into. Any thoughts on those 3 titles off the top of your heads, guys?
Give me Tears of the Nameless right now. I think that there is a real... I just have this feeling we're going to feel sympathy for these creatures at some point. They're going to twist it to where we actually,
I believe
they're somehow being manipulated in a way that is so hurtful to them.
What if, because it's George Mann, and George Mann, if you haven't read The Nameless Terror, he takes this Aliens meets Jaws approach to the Nameless, in that we don't see them a whole lot, but whenever we do, they're the scariest freaking things around. He's just so good. What if Tears of the Nameless is literally all... What if we just take a giant break? What if Temptations of the Force leaves us on an insane cliffhanger that they just leave us on until the 3rd wave of books? And then Tears of the Nameless literally is just a spin-off book about the history of the Nameless.
It could be just the list
That'd be
of
interesting.
Jedi and Force users that have been impacted. I'm probably hinging on this. I think that there's going to be something that the Jedi do that irreparably harms their connection to the Force.
Yep.
And how they eradicate the Nameless. Yep. And I think it's going to be borderline just cruel, full of fear and some anger. And it's going to be that fracture that ultimately we're going to see that the Sith come into in the Acolyte, which we can talk about in a moment. But
all right. Jay, anything real quick?
No, but I think that your comment about the Nameless and what if it's a spin-off book, actually I'd be excited for that.
That'd be really interesting because it's a young adult novel, so they can do whatever the heck they want and it really wouldn't matter because not enough people are going to read it to really make a difference. Anyways, the last 3 novels, very interesting titles, very interesting author choice because it mirrors the very first 3 books of Phase 1. So coming in spring 2025. So we got a long gap between fall 2024 into spring for the final 3 books. That's going to be an agonizing wait, but that's a problem for a year from now. That's a problem for that gap there. So the young adult novel, the final young adult novel is called Into the Light by Claudia Gray, a spinoff, a play on Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, which was our very first young adult novel. I would imagine that would be a Reith Silas book. Who knows? And then we have A Valiant Vow by Jessina Ireland on the middle grade novel in spring 2025. Most likely another Vernestra novel, I would imagine. That's probably a safe bet. And then finalizing it all, the book I am most dying for, I would kill for it right now. Trials of the Jedi by Charles Soule, the final adult novel. And of course that is a play on Light of the Jedi, which was the name of the phase there. Phase 2 was called Quest of the Jedi, which was a Claudia Gray one-shot that we don't really know the meaning of just yet. I have theories on that. And then Of course, Trials of the Jedi is the name of Phase 3, which is the final novel of the initiative.
Well, and it closed off by Charles Soule, who started us on this journey, himself. Claudia Gray has not, it's been a minute since we've got, she wrote, The Fallen Star, and it's been a minute since we've gotten another, it'll be a minute by then since we've gotten the Star Wars novel from her. So I have a feeling she is cooking up something really special. I have a feeling her and Soule both, I think that they have taken a lot of care into spacing these out, and they have spaced them out for, a real big reason. And I think Soule and Gray, if you have to think of some of the pillars of Star Wars storytelling, from a book standpoint, they have to be in that conversation. So we are in good hands. I cannot wait for those 2 novels. I like you, Nate. I don't know how I'm supposed to wait till 2025, like summer 25.
That's because I don't know if we're gonna have any comics by then, because I don't know.
I've had a lot of anticipated book things because in my life, I remember being old enough to wait for the last Harry Potter book to come out, or when I remember waiting for the last Percy Jackson book to come out when I was a kid. But waiting for the last High Republic books, it's gonna be just like that for me because
I don't know if we're gonna have any comics. Let me find on the last page here. So comics are famous for their checklists, and let me see if I can get this to look nice and good here.
No, I can't see it.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but this checklist for the main Marvel flagship series only goes to issue number 10. So if you follow monthly release schedules,
right,
that doesn't take us to 2025.
It does not. It takes us to basically the end of Wave 2. So I have a strong.
They'll do something.
Oh, I'm sure because that's going to be a long 8-month wait, an 8-month wait. Yeah, hell no, they won't do it because the High Republic, contrary to what some sectors of the internet says, is too popular to not put something out. It's going to be something, but I would not
getting more popular.
Yep. Yeah. I would not
It
be
really
surprised.
is. Yeah.
Once the Acolyte comes out, and if it's as good as we're all hoping, and it gets the viewership,
It's gonna be better.
Yeah, just watch out. But I would not be surprised if Scott's comic ends after issue 10, and we're stuck wondering what then after that second wave. But but anyways,
let's talk about it. We got a few minutes left. Let's talk about Acolyte just for a few minutes. I mean, I think it is going to be it's going to be a late bloomer. I think it's going to hit soft for a lot of people. But I truly believe, based off everything we've heard, that it's going to take off once people give it a chance and the word of mouth starts taking place. If Disney just allows it time to breathe and doesn't, how Lucasfilm, Disney are when something doesn't start off strong, they can get absolutely, scared to death and start changing everything. Give it some time to breathe. I think something we saw this summer is that we've forgotten is just how important word of mouth was. And I think about the movie Elemental. It was a Pixar movie that came out and absolutely just kind of tanked at the box office the first few weeks, but they just kept, word of mouth. People were like, this movie's pretty good. This movie's pretty good. And it had an incredibly strong end of theatrical run.
I'm pretty sure it made a small profit even. It came miraculously
really strong towards the end. And so I think the Acolyte has the chance to do that. And, we'll talk about this too. It has a chance to do something really special, which is really launch us into an era of storytelling outside of the start of the Skywalker saga and to the past a little bit, because we have the Rey movie coming in the future, but this is totally unconnected. And I absolutely cannot wait to see what that has. And we talked a little bit about Vernestra Rowe being our character that's going to be in there. She's going to be played by Rekka Henderson. And so she is going to be playing Vernestra Rowe. And that's the only character that we know of that's going to be in there. I would assume Yoda is probably going to at least be mentioned to some degree. I don't know if they're going to go all in and just put him in. I'm sure they will. But
I think you have to for the casuals.
What about Yaddle?
Oh,
yeah,
Yaddle's around too, and
I don't see why not. I don't see why not.
Her and Yoda both have
at least in the premiere. I mean, the pilot episode's got to be big and draw people in. So, yeah,
I'm wondering. I'm thinking we're gonna get that. We have obviously Amanda Sandberg. They're playing kind of the main role here, and we're gonna see the Sith. We're gonna see this dark stuff that we've never seen before, but. Beyond just speculation on the Acolyte itself, how do you guys think Phase 3 of the High Republic is going to ultimately, ripple effect into the Acolyte? Because it won't be completed by the time the Acolyte comes out. We will not even... There's a good chance we will have just gotten started with Phase 2 whenever this comes out, because I'm assuming it's probably going to be a summer, kind of a similar timeline maybe to Ahsoka even, like July, August type run. What ripple effects do you think we could see, Nate, like in the Acolyte?
For starters, I don't think they'll be as apparent right away, because I like to think that guys like Kevin Scott and Charles Soule and the authors were sitting in the writer's room for the Acolyte, but they weren't.
Right.
They weren't. So I don't think we can expect a ton of connections, but obviously there's some. Obviously the story group has said, there's a story for Vernestra. There's probably a story for, I don't know, some other thing. I have an editorial that I probably will never finish for the site that is basically my theory that the Nameless will be in the Acolyte.
I was just about to say, if we get the Nameless in live, it will be. They are the best villain.
That is possible. That is the way to end the first episode cliffhanger with.
They're still around, and
you don't even have to see the Nameless. You just see a Jedi husk.
My dream is that it's actually not in the Acolyte. This is like my dream. This is something that has 0% chance of ever happening, and it's very niche, like only for High Republic fans. Is that the Rey movie? Like we see some like seeds of like the path of the open hands / like Nile, and like the Nameless somehow are involved is like a new type villain type thing. But no, Jedi Husk, hint of the Nameless would be just an absolute great way. But I just wonder, is that going to take away from like the Sith aspect of this, rising up? Or
let me explain that a little bit more. Real quickly, MB Wilson, I do agree the timing. It all depends when the show airs. We don't know. With the actor strike just ending, basically said the timing makes me feel the Acolyte will have minimal tie-ins. I do agree for the most part because like they weren't like hand in hand, but they're in the same era, so there's going to be some. It all depends, and yeah, strikes will push back the release date because we still have Skeleton Crew that needs to fit in somewhere, and then we'll probably get probably Skeleton Crew. We hope Skeleton Crew, and then probably Acolyte, and then Andor, and then who knows what else. But let me explain a little bit more.
Acolyte or Skeleton Crew, Tales of the Jedi Season 2.
Oh my god, we're so busy. On top of all the High Republic crap we just talked about for an hour and a half. but let me explain a little bit more about my theory of the Nameless. I don't know if we will get a full Nameless, because they don't discriminate. They kill Jedi and Sith. And my idea kind of circles back around to Claudia Gray's Quest of the Jedi. That one-shot comic introduced a Sith who was after the Echo Stone. And the Echo Stone, we don't quite know what that is yet, but I'm pretty sure the shards of the Echo Stone can be seen on the Rod of Seasons, the Rod of Daybreak, and whatever the third rod is. I don't know what. Those 3 rods control the Nameless. So I don't know what, but we know the Sith have their weird ways with the Force. I would not be surprised because the Acolyte is all about how the Sith basically infiltrate the Republic in order to take down the Jedi Order. That's basically the premise of the show. So how else do you do that than by protecting yourself from the Nameless, but attacking the Jedi quietly and silently with some type of repurposed Nameless? I don't know what you would even do to communicate that it nullified the Jedi's connection with the Force, but I really like the idea of the Nameless being the cause of the Jedi, at least at that time, basically starting the process of their downfall.
I would love that, but I also would love to see that, and it would just feel more natural coming from the book form that we're getting and seeing them do something almost irreparable in the books. But I think, it's possible that both can happen. It's definitely possible that both can happen.
I think both are definitely very possible because the Jedi have to stop the Nameless as they are now in the books, but how? And because the Nameless are this extraterrestrial thing that we don't really understand, they're basically the antithesis of the Force itself. They're an entity that I don't think we'll ever fully understand. I think it'll be one of those things in Star Wars that we don't know, and I love that about them so much. So I'm just very curious of what they do, and I think that they are an interesting way for the Sith to get into the show. Whether they find some long lost, whether we see Planet X in the Acolyte and they find an egg and they bring one back. Just imagine seeing.
There's no way.
Imagine seeing. So awesome. Imagine seeing Planet X in a Disney Plus show and how shitty it would probably look.
It would look. They would not be able to. It would for mainstream viewers. They'd probably be like, oh, that's pretty interesting. We'd be sitting here like going like this is like. If you've ever watched Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal, where they're like, we really need to bond together, and they take LSD together to have this like crazy trip. That would be like Planet X on Disney Plus.
Oh my God, that would be something. But I love the idea. I mean, I think they gave this show based off the leaked trailers. It looks like they gave this show a decent amount of money. So who knows?
Carrie Ann Moss is in the freaking
I
show
know.
too. I mean, they
I
got
know.
some names.
They got some talent. Jay, what are your thoughts on all this? Do you have any wild speculation as well?
Not a whole lot, but I do agree with MB Wilson that I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of tie-ins. MB Wilson just added, could we see a situation where it takes Darkseid use to take down the Nameless, and that leads into the
Yes.
Sith comeback?
Sorry,
I think.
Sorry, Jay, but we have to talk.
No, yeah, I agree. I think this is a good theory.
Aslan Rel, he is still alive, and he is in Shadows of Starlight. He survived Phase 2, and he tapped into the dark side to stay alive. So already, and Yoda is like, yo, I like you, Darksider. Let's talk and try to figure out this Nameless problem. So yes, they are already trying to basically Yoda's accepting the dark side to solve this Nameless problem, which I find very interesting. So yes, I do think that's the situation we're going to see. And how that leads into the Sith comeback, I think that opens the door directly. So I don't know, but there's so many ways they could do it. And I think the Nameless are the key. It's just, how are they the key? I'm not sure yet. Tyler, any thoughts on MB Wilson comments there?
I have no thoughts. I think the dark side to take down the Nameless, something irreparable is going to happen for the Jedi. I've said that in order to destroy their connection with the Force the way it is right now, in a way that they might not perceive at the moment, but it's going to have the ripple effect of what happens when we see Palpatine's arms raised in the Senate building, declaring the Empire has, begun.
Yep, and the dark side's welcomed into the Republic's arms. It's welcomed into the Jedi Council's arms in Shadows of Starlight. So the first domino's down. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm very curious. Jay, any thoughts on that at all?
No, I think that we covered it pretty well. It'll be exciting to see.
All right. Real quick.
Who doesn't love a good book talk?
I know. Real quickly, I want to get out my Young Jedi Adventures theory. Just to close this out.
Be careful. I haven't watched the new episodes yet. I don't want to.
No, I won't.
Which is funny because I'm asking you not to spoil something that's literally for 6-year-olds.
It's nuts, but I genuinely think because they're being very particular about saying, hey, this episode where they go to Starlight Beacon is before the dedication ceremony, just so you know where it is in the timeline. I think season 1 is going to end with Nubs. I think it's going to be one of those situations where if you read Light of the Jedi, Avar Kriss was the hero of Hetzal. I think we're going to find out that Nubs saved the day in the Great Disaster. I can't wait to see what our 3 young leagues do in the Great Disaster. I think we're seeing the Great Disaster to close out Young Jedi Adventures season 1. And based on the timelines and based on animation, I would not be surprised if we get Young Jedi Adventures season 2 sometime in the fall, and we see them in a world in the world of Phase 3. I think that'd be really dark for preschoolers. So
it's just laughing right now. I'm thinking of George Mann or Charles Soule over there, like cooking up Phase 3. He's like,
guys, if you're listening to this,
and then Nubs drops off jumps
Nubs
off the cliff, and the Nameless simply looks up, and Nubs was no more. Like
Nubs is stuck in the occlusion zone, and he's having.
He's just off.
Oh man. So, but seriously, I do think we're going to start seeing Young Jedi Adventures tie in more to the books. So I'm very curious to see where they go in the future with that, because they do have to ride a delicate balance because it is for preschoolers. But
of course,
but is my shameless plug. Please go watch Young Jedi Adventures because I want more of it. God damn it. All right. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen, at all? Because we need to get the hell out of here. It's an hour and a half. Oh, my God.
Nothing for me. Just I got a couple. I'm going to be cooking up some comic reviews this weekend for High Republic stuff, so I'll be probably finishing those up tomorrow and Saturday. So be checking that out on Star Wars News Net for everything Star Wars. We cover it all. Like you just said, we'll have an hour-long talk about books. We'll talk about the Rise of Skywalker next week. We'll be back talking about all things Rise of Skywalker as we break down the saga films. It's going to be an action-packed episode because Paul has his very strong, likes of Rise of Skywalker, and then Brian hopefully will be fully recovered from a rather, rough illness he's been going over, but hopefully he's fully recovered and back to talk about some of his negative thoughts on the Rise of Skywalker, and we can find, some good stuff next week. But Star Wars News Net for everything. You can find me on Twitter, TypeRad5. Jay, anything else for you before we get out of here?
No, I think we covered it all. But I'll definitely be picking up Eye of Darkness next week.
Yep, Eye of Darkness on Tuesday. Be sure to pick it up. Comics, head to your comics book store. Pick up High Republic #1, Shadows of Starlight #2. #1, if you can find it. Issues #1s are always tough to find, so get on that if you can. Otherwise, digital is always there. But I'm sorry, physical media for comics is so much better. You get to collect everything. But guys, thank you for joining us. We have live action ups for the win. MB, let's go. I can't. Oh my God, imagine that. Oh my God, that would be so weird.
Well, everyone. Yep. Wrap it up. I'm ready. Yeah, ready to wrap it up.
I'm working on wrapping, but oh my God, but now I'm just imagining live action nubs.
Live action nubs can carry us over into next Thursday.
Anywho,
no better way to close it. No better way to close it tonight than saying, for light and life, and that we are all. I'll let you guys finish that. We are all. Now you ruined it. You missed the drop there. You missed the drop there. I was like so ready.
I wasn't sure what you were doing.
For light and life,
it's 11:30 at night. I'm a tired boy.
Until next week, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.